Hello again and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. In this module we're going to start to explore how you can create your first blank document. Now when you first open up Word 2019, as I've done here, you'll be presented with this home screen. And what you'll see in the main body of the screen is a list of recent documents. So these are recent documents that I've been working on and they're all listed under here. So I can just double click on any of these and it will open that particular document. So it's a really good way of just being able to quickly open things that you've been working on recently. So that's just a little bit of information for you on how to access recent documents. But what we want to concentrate on in this module is how to create a blank document. Now, if you cast your eyes to just above that recent list, you'll see the first thing that we have there is in fact a blank document. So it's fairly straightforward. You can probably guess what you have to do here. Just simply click on blank document to create a new one. But before we get on to doing that, I just want to show you some other options that you have in this area when it comes to creating new documents. Now, if you don't want a blank document, you might decide to create a new document based on a specific template. And Word has a number of different templates that you can utilize in order to do that. Now, if you've never used a template before and you're not really sure what they are, it's just really a good starting point. So for example, if you know that you need to create a resume or maybe some meeting notes, you can search for a specific template related to a resume or meeting notes, and it will already have a lot of the information or the layout that you want for that particular document. So I have a few up here. You can see we have blue, grey resume, welcome to Word, single space, so on and so forth. And I also have a more templates link, which I'm going to click on. And now I can go through and I can really get a good look at some of the templates that are available for me to use. And there is a whole host of them in here, and they definitely are worth checking out if you've never been into this section before. Now, if you are looking for something very specific, you can search for it up here. So again, if we use the example of resume, I can just type it in, click on the magnifying glass. It will search the templates and it will pull back a list of all of those resume templates. And if I find one that I like, I can just click on it and then I can start working on it. So very, very simple. Now, I don't want to use a template at this stage. We are going to get into that a bit later on. I just want to create a new blank document. So very simple. Now, what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to click on this little arrow. So the one that says all, I'm going to click it. So we go back and I'm going to select blank document. So now we've created a blank document and you can see in the title bar, it just says document 1 because we haven't saved it yet. Now, there's a few things I just want to highlight to you with regards to typing in your first document. You'll see I have the cursor flashing and you can see it doesn't flash right at the edge of the page on the left-hand side. There is a little bit of a margin left in there, about an inch or so. And you can see that that's where, when I start typing, that's where all my text is going to start coming out. So I'm just going to type a very basic line first of all. So let's say this is my first document. Now, if I was to carry on typing, when I get to the end of a row, I don't need to hit the enter key in order to go on to the next line. It will just automatically wrap as I start typing. So you can just continue typing your text and it will wrap itself around. So don't feel the need to hit enter at the end of a line. If, however, you do want to force a line break, so if I was here and I wanted to do something on a different line, I could hit the enter key and that will take me down to the next line and I can carry on typing again. Like so. One other thing to notice is that if you're at the start of a line and you start to type a sentence and you don't capitalize the first letter, Word will automatically capitalize it for you. So if I just start to type in the same thing as above, so let's say this is how, you see there it capitalized it for me without me needing to go back. That's due to Word's autocorrect feature. It recognizes certain things and it will change it for you, making your life a lot easier. We are going to explore a lot of the autocorrect options in the following modules. Now, some other things for you to be aware of. Let me just go in and I'm just going to delete out that text that I've just written. I'm going to go up to the line above and I'm actually going to spell the word brakes wrong. So I'm going to add an E in there and click away. Now what you'll see is I get that red squiggly underline, and that tells me that I have a spelling error in that word. So what I can then do is hover over the word, and if I right click my mouse, it's going to give me a whole host of options. And more often than not, the word that you're looking for is normally in this list. If it isn't, then you will have to go in and just make the change manually. But I can see here that mine it's the top one, so I can just select it and make that change. Now also, I'm going to jump back into this sentence and I'm going to add a comma and a space. And I'm going to click at the end. And you can see now that Word's also picked up that there's something wrong there. There's a grammatical error, and this kind of error is very common, particularly when you're typing quite fast. You might accidentally put a comma in, hit the space bar twice. But I can see now with that double underline, if I right click, it's telling me how I should fix that. So it's saying how and comma would be better there. Now, when it comes to spelling words wrong, I'm just going to put that spelling error back in there again. And if you right click, you can choose to add the word to a dictionary as well. So there will be some instances where you'll type a word, maybe it's the name of someone or the name of a place. Sometimes Word doesn't recognize things like that, and it will tell you that it's spelt wrong when actually it isn't, it's just not recognized by Word. So if you do have that, you can select Add to Dictionary, and it will then add that word into the word dictionary so that the next time you type it, it doesn't register as any kind of spelling error. So just be aware of that as well. And all of these options are available in that right-click menu. Now, just a couple of other things I want to highlight before we move on to the next module. If I wanted to do another blank document, I would just go up to File, I would go to New, and I would select blank document. And what you'll notice now, if you look up in the title bar, is that it now says document 2. So it hasn't closed down my original document, it's just underneath the one that I'm currently working on. Now, if I do want to switch between the two, or in this case, switch back to the first document, there are a couple of ways that I can do that. I can either hover my mouse down in the status bar at the bottom over my Word icon. So I have my Word icon pinned to my toolbar there, and it will allow me to see both of my documents, and I can then choose which one I want to move to. So I can switch back to document 1. I could also go up to my View ribbon and I could say switch windows, and it will list there all of your open documents. So again, I could choose to switch back to document 2. So really nice and easy to be able to switch between any or all of the documents that you have open. And of course, if you want to close your document, then you can do that very easily as well. Now, I will warn you, if you look right up in the top right-hand corner, you have this big cross icon where it says close, and that will close all of Word. So just be aware of that. I tend to like to just go to File and down to Close if I'm just looking to close one file. So hopefully that sort of explains how to create a new document and how to first start typing, and some of the little things that you might see as you start typing into your first document. We're going to move on now to the next module, where we're going to be talking about working with non-printing characters and line spacing. So please join me for that. Hello again, and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. In this module, we're going to start to discuss how you can work with non-printing characters and line spacing. And what we mean by that is that there are certain characters, so for example things like space, enter, tab, that you can't see. And what I'm going to show you in this module is how you can make those visible so that you can work with your document a little bit better. And we're also going to be taking a look at line spacing as well, and how you can adjust line spacing when you're typing in your document. So the first thing I'm going to do here is we have a blank document in front of us, and I'm going to set this up as a very basic letter. So I'm going to start by typing in a date. So I'm just going to start by creating a basic letter. And the first thing I want to type on the top of this letter is the date. So I'm going to type in a date. So let's say July, And as I start to type, you can see it's picked up July 25th, 2019. So if that is the date that I want, then I can just hit the Enter key and it will insert that date automatically for me. So that's a great time-saving tip there. So now I'm going to want to address this letter to someone. So I'm going to press my Enter key, which will take me down a line. And I'm going to type in to, and I'm going to put in a colon. And then I'm going to press the Tab key on my keyboard, which will give me a little bit of space in there. And what Tab does exactly is that it stops at the ½ inch mark on the ruler. So you could press Tab numerous times and it would move across ½ inch across the page each time you press it. And the good thing about using tabs as opposed to putting in lots of space to get your cursor where you need it is it ensures that everything will be lined up. So you'll see if I go underneath and I start to type something, if I press the Tab key, it's going to jump me across directly underneath where the tab was in the above line. So it just makes it a lot easier to line up things rather than pressing that space bar over and over again to move your text along. So I'm going to say to, Adam. I'm going to press my Enter key and I'm going to type the word from. I'm going to put in a colon and I'm going to press my Tab key again. And you see what I mean? It's directly lined up underneath where I have Adam. So I'm just going to type in my name underneath there. So just remember that you have those tabs when you're working in a document as well. And I'm going to show you a little bit later how you can adjust those and how you can set up your own custom tabs as well so that things line up wherever you want them to line up on the page. Now I'm going to press Enter a couple more times and I'm going to start my document. And we're going to say, call Mr. Jones to check your order. The item you want is out of stock. And will not be available to order until next week. Now, a couple of things to note there. You'll see that as we got to the end of the sentence, it just wrapped around. I didn't have to hit my Enter key. I didn't need to put a line break in there just to get that to wrap round onto the next line, which is perfect. And you'll also note that we have a little squiggly line under where it says Mr. So if I right click and look at my options, I can see there the top one is probably what I want. So Mr. Jones. So I'm going to add a little bit more text in here. If you have any more questions, please call me. I'm going to go down a couple more lines just by hitting my Enter key, and then I'm going to put regards and then my name. So we've created a very basic letter just there, and we've utilized some tabs. We've got some spaces in there. We have some enters, or some carriage returns as we used to call them in the old days. But we can't see any of those. Now you might think to yourself, well, I don't actually really need to see the tabs, the spaces, but sometimes it is actually very useful. And I'll give you a couple of examples why in a moment. But there is something that you can turn on in Word which will show you all of those non-printing characters. And it's called the Show Hide button. And you'll find it here on the home ribbon. In the paragraph group, you have this little thing which looks like a paragraph marker. And when you hover over, it says Show Hide. And the dialog box says Show Paragraph Marks and Other Hidden Formatting Symbols. So if I turn that on, and now look at the document, you can see what we have. So everywhere that there is an enter, you can see the little paragraph mark. You can see the little arrows which indicate that tab as well. So this is useful in situations like, for example, have you ever had it where you've printed a document and you get a blank sheet of paper at the end of your printing and you can't work out why because you don't have anything on that piece of paper? If you turn on your paragraph marks, what you'll normally find is that you have a rogue, or maybe a few of them, paragraph markers or extra enter keys on the next page, which is why that page is printing. So all you need to do is go in and delete out those additional lines. So without turning on that Show Hide, you wouldn't be able to see those and you wouldn't know that was what was causing that blank page to print out. So sometimes it is very useful to be able to see these non-printing characters. So I'm going to turn that off for now, just by clicking on the same icon again. And we're going to look at line spacing this time. Now what you'll notice with Word is that when you press the Enter key, so say for example like I did between to and from, you get quite a big space in between there. So that doesn't look like single line spacing, that's actually double line spacing by default. So what I want to do is I want to tidy this up a little bit. So I'm going to select all of my document or all of the text in my document. And there is a quick way of doing that, and that is the shortcut key Control A. And you'll see as I do that, it highlights everything. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to jump up to my home ribbon in the paragraph group. And this little drop down here is for line and paragraph spacing. And I can go through, and as I hover over, you'll see I get more or less space in between my lines in my document. So it's really up to you which one you want to select. Now, because I've selected my whole document, it's adjusting the line spacing according to the line spacing that was already there. So say, for example, I only wanted to adjust the line spacing in this to from area. I could just highlight that bit there. I could go up and then I could make it smaller, I can make it bigger, or I can go into line spacing options and I can really go to town with how much spacing before and after that I want. So if I don't like this space in between, I can see here in the spacing area, it's actually because of this 8-point spacing after. So I could take that down to 0, click OK, and I now have no space in between. Okay, so definitely worth having a little play around with some of those line spacing options. You do also have a couple at the bottom here, so add space before paragraph or add space after paragraph. So again, it depends exactly what you want to do, but everything is very customizable in this area. So we've seen how we can turn off and on those paragraph markers so that we can show or hide those non-printing characters, and we've seen how we can adjust line spacing. What I want to talk to you about next is saving, so that's in the next section. I will see you then. Hello again and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. In this module, we're going to talk about saving a document. Now, this is the document that we created a few moments ago. And if you look at this document, it's quite difficult to tell on first look if it's been saved or not, but there are a couple of clues. And the biggest clue, I guess, would be if you look up into that title bar at the top of the document, it just says Document 1 at the moment. Now, because it doesn't have a name, it means that I haven't saved this document. Remember, Document 1, 2, 3 is the default name you get when you create a new blank document. So that's how I know that this document isn't saved. So the first thing I want to do is to save this document to a location of my choice. Now, as always in Microsoft, there are a few different ways that you can save a document. So I could go across to my quick access toolbar and you'll see the first icon there is the save icon. Now again, normally if I had already saved this document and I'd then made some changes, I could just click save and nothing would happen. It would just save my changes to the file name. But because I haven't saved this document yet, if I click on save, it's going to jump me to that save as area. Let me just go back for one moment. So that's the first way you could do it. You could click on the icon if you have it on your quick access toolbar. The second way of doing it, which essentially is going to take me to the same place we were just in, it's just a slightly longer way, is to go into that backstage area. So I could go to File and down to Save As. Now this Save As screen might look a little bit unusual if you're not used to it. Again, this is similar in all of the Microsoft applications. What you have on the left-hand side is you have a list of recent folders. So again, it's going to show me all of the folders that I've recently saved into. Or alternatively, I have different locations where I can choose to save this document. So I could choose to save it to OneDrive, which is cloud storage. So that would be a great option if I wanted to collaborate on this document. So specifically if I wanted to share it with other people, and also if I wanted to make sure that I could access this document from wherever I am, I would save it into OneDrive, into the cloud. Alternatively, I could choose to save it to any other location. So I could choose to save it to my local drives on my PC, and I could choose to browse to a specific location as well. So I'm going to click on Browse, and I can now choose a location from my local folders. So I'm going to scroll up, and I actually am going to save it into my OneDrive. So I'm going to go to my OneDrive, I'm going to click on Documents, and I'm going to select a folder. And I'm going to put it in this one here, Word Documents. And I can then give my file a name. So you can see here in the file name area, it's picked up the first line of that document, and that's what you'll see as the default file name. It will always put in the first line of your document, which most of the time isn't what you want to call your file. So we're going to jump into here and we're going to change that. So I'm going to say my first letter. And underneath you can see it says save as type. So I've selected docx, which is the 2019 file extension. Just as a point of note, if you click the drop down here, you do have other file types that you can save your document as. So some of these you might want to use. For example, this one here, Word 97 to 2003. So that will save it in the .doc format, which is the old format for Word documents. So if you're using an older version of Word, that's in general what you would have saved your document as. Now, why might you want to save your 2019 document as an older version? Well, as I mentioned briefly in one of the earlier modules, if you plan to send this to somebody who you know doesn't have 2019, maybe they have a much older version, then you can help them out a little bit by saving your document as a doc file, and it will ensure that you can, when they open it, it will open in compatibility mode and they can read it. So just be mindful of who you're sending it to. You could also come in here and save it as a template if you wanted to reuse it. You can save it as a PDF, and we will be going through some of these options as we go through the course. But for now, I'm happy to keep it as a docx file extension. And I'm going to click Save. And it's as simple as that. So now if you glance up to the top of your letter, you should now see that it's been given a name. So my first letter. So what that means with regards to saving is if I now make a change to this, so if I put in my full name, so now if I want to save this, I can go to my quick access toolbar and I can just click on save. I don't need to go back into save as. And can you see now my save button has those little arrows over the top? That's because I've saved it into a cloud location. So essentially what it's doing when you save is it's doing a refresh with the cloud version. So if I click save, it just saves those changes to that particular file name. Another thing I could do would be Control S on my keyboard. That is the shortcut for save as well. Now I would recommend when you are working in a document, if you have saved it and you have your file name, as you're going through, just do Control S every now and again just to make sure that those changes are being saved. Now if I was to make one more change, so I'm just going to put my name on the next line by pressing enter. Now maybe I don't save, but I just go to close my file by clicking on the cross at the top. You can see it's asking me, do you want to save your changes to my first letter? So Word will recognize any unsaved changes as you go to close, and it will prompt you to save those. So you can then click save or don't save. Now I actually don't want to close this down, so I'm just going to close out of there. So that's pretty much it on saving, fairly straightforward. We are going to close this document in a moment, and I'm going to show you how to open it in the next module. So I will see you over there. Hello again and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. We're now down to the opening a document module. And really opening a document is just the opposite of saving. So it's very straightforward. What we have on the screen here is just a blank Word application. So I closed down the previous document and now I want to reopen it. So I'm going to go up to the File tab. So remember, this takes us into that Backstage area. And it's jumped me automatically to the Open section because I have nothing open. Word is assuming that I'm going to want to open a file. Now that may be the case, or it might not. It might be you want to create a new one from scratch. But in this case, it's got it pretty much right. I do want to open a document. So again, this looks kind of similar to the Save As screen that we were in previously. You'll see that Recent is highlighted, and I also have Documents underlined. So it's showing me underneath all of my recent documents, and you should be able to see there right at the top, we have my first letter at the top there. So if I wanted to open it, I can very simply just click it from this list and it will open. Now, I'm not going to do that at the moment because I want to show you something slightly different. I'm going to browse to a location, and I'm just going to go up to a location where I have a number of different Word files. So let's go to Documents. And I'm going to go into this folder here because I want to show you something quite important with regards to this Explorer window that we're currently looking at. So there's different ways that you can view files before you open them. So a lot of the time you might know what you're looking for. Sometimes you won't. Sometimes you might need to see a little bit more detail about a file. So there are lots of different ways that you can view this file list. And you can do that by clicking on this little option just here. And it gives you a number of different ways that you can view the file list in the Explorer window. So currently I have details selected, but if I go to extra large icons, it's going to show me them like that. And if I go to large icons, they're a bit smaller. I also have medium icons. I'm sure you can imagine what those look like. And then small icons. Then we have list. List is quite a popular one. I personally prefer to choose the details option because not only does it give you the list, but it also gives you a little bit more information about each particular file. So I can see here in the status column, I can see that those are all saved into the cloud and that they're all synchronized up. I can also see the date that these files were modified. And I can also see the type, so whether they're a Word document, PDF, Excel file, and also the size. Now the size can be critical sometimes, particularly when you're dealing with very large files. It's good to be able to see the file size. So I like the details option, but it is up to you. There are a couple of others in here. So we have tiles, again, just a different way. And then finally we have contents. That gives you, again, a little bit more information like the author, date modified, things like that. For me, that's slightly too much. As I said, I prefer the details option, but just be aware that you have different ways that you can view your files so you can see a little bit more information so you know which one you want to open. Now, in this case, I'm going to open a file called Navigate. So let's select it and click Open. And I'm also going to open another file. I'm going to reopen that letter file that we just saved. So back to File, I'm going to jump down to Open. And this time I'm going to pick it up from my recent list. So I'm just going to click. And again, it's going to open that document over the top of the other one. And remember, we can switch between the two by going up to View, going to Switch Windows, and we can switch between the two of them. Alternatively, we can hover our mouse over our Word icon at the bottom and then navigate between the two of them as well. So that's a nice way of having multiple files open and being able to switch between them. Now, another thing that's quite nice sometimes is to be able to view two documents side by side. This is particularly good if you're comparing two documents, or maybe you are cutting something from one and pasting into another. You don't want to have to keep switching between the documents. What you can do is you can display them side by side. And again, it's quite useful. We're on the correct ribbon. On the View ribbon, you'll see that you have a View side by side option. So let's click it. And there we go. I now have both of my documents taking up exactly half of the screen. So as I said, really good if you need to copy and paste or see two things at the same time. Of course, if you want to just get one of the documents back to its full size, if you just click on the Maximize in the corner, and it will bring that document to the front in its full size. Now, another thing you can do on that View ribbon is you can use the Split option. So let's see what that does. Let's click on Split. Now, this is quite interesting. What it will do is it will split the same document. So I have the same document in both halves of the screen. You can see exactly the same, but it means I can scroll each document independently. So again, this is good if I'm trying to do some comparisons or some cutting and pasting. Lots of different things you can do with that split option if you want to see two different areas of the same document at the same time. And of course, if I want to get back to it just being one document, I have the Remove Split option. And there we go. And there's just one final option I want to point out in here which you might want to use, and that's the Arrange All button. So let's click it. And it kind of tiles them over the top of each other. And I don't particularly like this view too much. I never really use it. But again, if you've got quite a few documents open, maybe more than two, it can be quite useful to be able to see them all kind of arranged next to each other. And again, to get out of this, just click the maximize on one of the documents. So a few different ways that you can view your document once you've opened it. So hopefully that's given you some insight on how you can open one or more files and the different ways that you can view them when you're working on your document. In the next module, we're going to talk about navigating in documents, so please join me for that.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so that you get notified about similar videos we upload. Now, to get the full Microsoft Word 2019 course, including follow-along exercise files, click over there. And click over there to watch all the videos in this Word 2019 playlist.